Hi, mamas. Welcome back to the Share Parenting podcast. Today, we want to talk about sibling rivalry, the age-old, how do I get my kids to stop fighting all the time? There are some comforting things that we want to talk about and some inconvenient truths that we want to talk about. One being there is no silver bullet approach, just like everything else in parenting, which is frustrating, I know, but we're going to go over some awesome information, some steps that will help you to mitigate these disagreements in your family and hopefully shift your expectations, because the other inconvenient truth is that it is acceptable, typical, expected, standard for kids to fight about 8 times an hour. That's a lot. And if we expect that our kids are going to squabble and quarrel and have disagreements, it makes it a lot easier for us. We alleviate the need to make it all stop and make it all go away, because there is a huge benefit to those disagreements. Kids are learning how to have disagreements. They're learning how to own their own feelings and experiences. They're learning how their choices and actions impact another person. They're learning how to engage with their siblings in ways that consider their perspective and their feelings as well as their own. They're learning how to not be a wallflower, not be a bully. They're learning so much by having these quarrels. So really, if we can accept them as a normal part of childhood development and then help them to work through those quarrels in productive ways, we can use these as ways to give tools to our kids instead of feeling like we're doing something wrong because they disagree too often. We want our kids to have disagreements, and we want them to have lots of times where they're having fun together. So if your kids absolutely hate each other and they never play together and they never do anything fun together, that would be where I would be worried. But if they play all the time together and also fight all the time together, there's probably a good balance. So when you are talking about sibling rivalries, the first thing that you want to remember is that humans fight over resources. We always have, way back when, all the way going back to tribal times, we fight over resources. When resources are scarce, we fight more and we fight harder because we fear the lack, the losing of those resources. In most of our lives, food and water and shelter are not resources our kids are worried about, which is an incredible blessing, something that we should express our gratitude for. The things that they're worried about are resources like mom's lap, book time, how many Ninja Turtles you have to play with, things like that. And maybe we laugh and that seems silly, but it's what they have to care about. So we have to recognize that that does matter to them. When our kids are fighting over mom, one, that it does mean food, water, comfort, safety, shelter. It means all of those things because that's what mom represents. But it's also the connection that they have with mom. And so a lot of sibling rivalry can be mitigated by just focusing on the connection between each individual child and yourself. And when they feel secure in that relationship, they don't have as much to fight about. They will find other things. And the same goes for dad. So they want to be able to feel very secure in that relationship and very bonded. And then the other sibling isn't a threat. Where you see this come up significantly is with a new sibling, because that new sibling was not a choice for the sibling who was already there. And that new sibling is a threat. They don't know what's going to happen. They don't know what this baby or, you know, in cases of adoption, an older child represents to their feeling of safety and security and expectations of connection and all of those things. What is this thing that just came into my house going to take away from me? Is the fear that these little kids are dealing with. And when we are addressing the concerns, we have to remember where it's coming from. This is a legitimate fear for them. They don't know how to handle that well, so they handle it poorly. And if we're focused just on how badly they handled this situation, we're missing the opportunity to address the actual root that caused this situation to begin with. So we want to make sure we focus on our connection and make sure that our kids feel bonded and connected with us first and foremost. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Connection equals cooperation. Defiance equals disconnection. So if your kiddo is really struggling, figure out where the disconnect is and repair it. So the second thing is that kids model their environment. So how do you handle conflicts in your family? How do you handle conflicts with them? How do you handle conflicts with your significant other? How do you handle conflicts with the neighbor? You know, if you're yelling and losing your cool and then your kid's yelling and losing their cool, well, yeah, that's the modeling that they have. Can your kids yell and lose their cool even if you don't? Yes, because number 3, kids lack self-regulation. Their brains are not fully formed. The prefrontal cortex is the piece of the brain that controls our impulses, that allows us to think, I would really like to punch that guy, and not do it. Theirs is not done growing, and it won't be done growing until they're 25. So when they think, I'd really like to punch that guy, meaning their brother, they do it. And then they go, ooh, I wasn't supposed to do that, but it happened. How did that happen? Because their brain was not able to stop them because it is not fully formed. So it's not to say that you made your kids fight, or you made your kids yell, or you made your kids hit. It's all your fault. It's just to say that if there is some element of the way that you handle conflict that is not how you would want them to handle conflict, working on that, focusing on that, doing better in that area will give them something else to model as well, which will help them to better handle their conflicts. Number 4, humans need to feel important. Everybody wants to feel significant. And it can be really challenging when there are multiple siblings for any one of them to feel significant. And that's not that they don't feel loved. It's not that they question whether you care about them. It's what makes them so special in comparison to other people. What's unique about them? And this can be very dangerous because you don't want to pigeonhole your kids. You don't want to have the pretty one and the smart one, or the athletic one and the brainy one. Like, you don't want to do that. You want to, on a daily basis, notice that individual and what they contributed to the family, to the meal, to the relationship, whatever it is. I love when when you help me cook. That it's really sweet. It's really helpful to me. I saw that you helped your brother put on his shoes. That was really helpful. Thank you for being my helper. Noticing little details like that, rather than just blind praise of, you're the best, or things that don't have any meat, any substance. You want to be really specific about what you see and what you appreciate and what you notice, because those things help them to develop their identity. I'm a helper because I helped my brother put his shoes on. If that feels good, Mom noticed that. I feel good about that. That's something I want to continue to do. I noticed that when you and your brother were fighting, you were using your words. That's really cool to see that you're able to do that now. Like, acknowledge the really detailed specifics so that they know what to keep doing and what to feel good about and what to embody as they develop their identities. Relationships, number 5, relationships need one-on-one time. Just like marriages need date nights, kids do too. And it can be date days, it can be date hour while the baby's taking a nap, but we do need one-on-one time with our kids. We need one-on-one time, like mom with all the kids, dad with all the kids, and then mom with each individual kid and dad with each individual kid. And is that always super easy to do? No. Is there a magic formula for how often you need to do it? No. Is it okay if one kid has higher needs right this minute and they get more dates than the other kids? Yeah, it is actually, because kids aren't keeping track like that. They want to know that their needs are going to be met. If they are, they're good. They're not sitting there with a calendar and tally marks saying, well, you took Brad out 6 times and you only took me out 5 times. Like, that's just not how kids function. They are way too in the moment for that, which is great. So just focus on your connection. If you feel like there's a disconnect, do something. Walk to the mailbox together. Go out and mow the lawn together. Go sit and draw in a journal together. It doesn't have to be complicated or extravagant or huge to matter to a kid. I've seen a meme, the way they spell love is T-I-M-E. They want to spend time with you. So finding those little things that you can do to make them feel like this relationship is super important to you and that their unique connection to you is super important to you is going to help create the connection that will heal. You also want to do family outings all together. You want to do things where kids get the opportunity to share adventure and share excitement and do things to bond. So going to the zoo, going camping, going on a lantern walk in the full moon, things that they can do together that everybody can enjoy and get a kick out of. And when they look back, they remember their siblings being a part of that memory. Playing in the sprinklers in the summertime, just so many things. Like, think back to the things that you remember fondly and the people that were a part of that. And you'll understand kind of what these family outings should be. A small note, roughhousing is part of this. Some parents have a fear of roughhousing that's going to make kids fight more. It actually makes them fight less. Little kids, just like little puppies, they will learn social skills by roughhousing. They learn with their bodies. They learn by climbing and crawling and touching and mouthing and doing all of these things. And that doesn't just stop. But roughhousing, where everybody is choosing to be involved and they're having what looks like a fight, but everybody's still happy and choosing to be a part of it, that's really important. They learn empathy. They learn nonverbal communication. They learn to pay attention to faces. They learn their strength. They learn how to inhibit their strength and control their body movements. It is so valuable for children to roughhouse and for children to roughhouse with adults. So ideally, boys and girls should be able to roughhouse with their dads because they've got this example of this very strong figure who could crush them, who doesn't, who can control his body movements, who can show them how to pay attention to the little nuances that we communicate with our bodies. When a smile turns to a grimace and dad stops and says, hey, are you okay? They're giving this example of really tuning into another person. And it's incredibly valuable. There's a book called The Art of Roughhousing that everybody should read. And it can feel scary. If roughhousing, full-on physical is too much, you can still roughhouse in softer ways. You can do pillow fights. You can roll up socks and do snowball fights. You can do tug-of-war with a blanket. You can do pool noodle sword fights. So you can still roughhouse even if like full-on wrestling isn't your jam for whatever reason. We all need downtime too. That's number 7. So kids need breaks from each other sometimes. They need time to think or read or draw or create and not be stimulated by all the people around them. So giving them a way to create that, a safe place, maybe a bunk bed where, each bunk is their private space, let them hide in the closet with a book and a flashlight, whatever it is, help them to create that separation when they need it, so they know that's a tool that they can use and rely on to create that feeling of peace inside of themselves. Be an example of that as a mom. We get touched out and agitated and frustrated, and we don't take care of ourselves, and we just keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing until we blow. And we can be an example of saying, you know what, mom needs 20 minutes. I'm going upstairs, I'm locking the door, I'm taking a bath, and everybody can wait. Ideally with dad home downstairs or whoever, whatever other adult available at that time. But even if there isn't another adult available, I have closed the pantry door and sat in front of it and just breathed. I can hear them pounding on the door. They're clearly alive, but I need a moment. I need a moment. And I tell them that. And they learn how to take a moment for themselves. They learn how to recognize when they're overwhelmed and they need a moment. And it's very, very valuable for them to learn that. Number 8 is probably the hardest, if number 9 isn't. Stay out of it. If you can, stay out of it. There are times when fights get too physical and you have to intervene so that nobody gets seriously injured. But so often we just make it worse by getting involved. And that's where number 9 comes in, is this idea of blaming. So we are this omniscient presence, and we just come over top of this quarrel that has nothing to do with us, and we demand that kid A gives kid B the car because we hear that kid B wants it, and we don't like them yelling about it. Just give it to him. Well, we have shortcutted all of the learning that could happen in that situation. We don't know who had the car. We don't know who took the car. We don't know what the agreement was about the car. We just don't know. We weren't there. And it takes 2 to create a conflict. And it's so easy to blame the older kid, or the kid who is more typically grabby or aggressive. It just becomes a habit and a pattern. But when we do that, we take away the possibility for that child to ever grow out of that place. We're constantly putting them back in that place where they're at fault. They're the ones that must have done something wrong, instead of recognizing that, yeah, a 2-year-old can totally trigger a 6-year-old. And maybe the 6-year-old's older, but the 2-year-old is old enough to be a kid too. And they are both old enough to do things to irritate each other and to work through those things together. So if you're hearing, shouting or, whatever, this conflict is brewing, you can sit and listen and give it a minute. Give it a minute before you get involved. Obviously, if somebody screams like their leg's on fire, you probably want to go check it out. But try to give them some space to find a solution. And you might not love the solution. That's okay. You'll see this a lot with older and younger kids. As the younger kid becomes more of like a fully autonomous person who has their own wants and desires and can express them, the dynamic shifts, where it used to be, big brother could take anything and just hand little brother something else, and little brother was fine with that. Well, now he's not. And now it's really important for big brother to recognize he gets very mad when I take things now. And it's not so simple as just handing him whatever. I have to actually consider what he wants along with what I want. and giving them kind of the space to work through that to the extent that you can. You can help them to work through the conflict in a neutral way. Instead of blaming, you ask each person, what their side is. One person talks at a time. I like to start with the younger one and tell the older one, I will listen to you. You will get your turn. Let me hear Revan's side, and then I'll hear your side. Because he's a little bit more able to hold it and remember, whereas the little one just gets frustrated. So if you're able to get both sides, then you repeat back what you hear. Not what you think or what you assume, just what you hear. I hear that Revan really wants the red car and Xavier really wants the red car. So you both want the same car. Is that right? Okay. And they will tell you, he took it first. Well, it doesn't matter, really. The problem is you both want the same car. So what can we do so that you both have a solution that makes you content? What can we do to help you both? Maybe that is setting a timer so that you can take turns. Maybe that is that, one of the brothers decides that there's 2 red cars. You use this one, I use this one. Maybe that is that, I changed my mind, I want the blue car. Maybe that's, I don't really want to play this game because we keep fighting about the cars. Whatever it is, that's okay. But approaching it as a problem with a solution rather than approaching it as, you guys are fighting, I'm sick of your fighting. Find the solution to the problem, and then the fight goes away. And you give them the power to resolve those conflicts on their own when it comes up again, because it will, because they fight over resources and toys is one of their resources. When they're very little, they are not great at coming up with their own ideas yet, so you might give them ideas, like, do you want to take turns with a timer? Once they're older, though, they really can come up with a lot of their own solutions, and it helps them to give them that time and space to come up with an idea. But back to ideas that you might not like, it might not seem fair to you, but if both parties are happy with it, I would say let it go. It will change. Time will change it. It might feel lopsided towards one or the other, and it's much easier for you to tell the big kid to just give the little kid what they want. But that's not reality. The little kid, you don't want them to have this assumption that because they're younger, they just get what they want. You want them to explain what they want. You want to ask them and hear them and let them use their voice to express what they need and what they think about the situation, and give them the words to express that to their sibling. And you want the sibling to acknowledge that and hear those words, because they're, for some period of time, have been able to essentially ignore the younger sibling's input because they couldn't talk. And now that they're both talking, they have to hear each other. So you model that for them. You hear them, you repeat what you hear, you ask them, how are we going to solve this problem? If somebody does hurt somebody else, then you move into solving that problem. Well, what can we do to make this better? Because this choice led to this, person being hurt. So how can we make them feel better? And you focus on that part of it. We want to avoid, number 10 is we want to avoid labels and a fixed mindset. We always want to talk about growth mindset. You'll see sibling rivalry sometimes in like this ugly competitive way, not like normal competitive, but like I'm better than you kind of way. And it's so triggering when that happens for a lot of families. And so much to the point that they start to be threatened by it when kids are really little, when they're 3 and they're just noticing things. I'm taller than you. Okay, that's just words. That's just an observation. That's not an insult. We as the adults might have a hang up over height, I know that I do. I'm short. But we have to assume the best intentions. And so if our kids are saying things that could possibly be innocent, let it be innocent. If they're saying, I'm taller than you, so I'm better than you. Okay, better at what? Like, explore it, feel comfortable letting them dive into that thought a little bit. It's probably not been hashed out all that well. Well, I'm better at reaching high things. Yeah, you are, for now. And as brother gets taller, he'll be better at reaching high things too. Oh, all of a sudden the rivalry part's gone. It's just words. It's just a statement. What can you do to kind of mitigate any of the emotional charge behind it? I'm better at baseball. Oh, how are you better at baseball? Well, I bat better. Cool. You must have been practicing a lot. I bet that if brother wants to be better, he can practice too, just like you have. So now it becomes about encouraging brother. Now it's, you can be better too, brother. You can practice with me, versus this need to be better than. And I've watched this a lot with my boys because they're only 18 months apart. And part of how my older gets significance is by being better at things. And part of how he can show love is by showing his brother how he can be better too. So we really focus on how we're better and better and better. The more we practice things, the more we learn things, the more we grow our brain and stretch our brains. When things are hard, one of the things that in fixed mindset is that when things are hard, a lot of times these kids will not want to do them. They'll want to just shut down because it's too hard. They want things to be easy, especially if lots of things are easy. And so that's when I point out, you can feel your brain growing, can't you? This is tough. This is really tough. I remember when it was really tough for me too. And I had to keep pushing until I was able to get it a little bit easier each time. And they're starting to get it, they're starting to identify their power in all of this. They're not completely helpless. They can become better. They can choose what areas they want to improve in and what areas they don't. They can choose to acknowledge somebody else's skill without it being any kind of negative reflection on them. And my husband and I work to do that with each other in front of the kids. Dad is much better at pull-ups and push-ups than I am. That's cool. Like, that doesn't say anything negative about me. That's just something that's positive and fun about Dad. Mom is better at crochet than Dad. That's cool. I think my kids like Dad's pancakes better. Okay. Like, why would I take offense to that? That's awesome. There's nothing wrong with that. And so letting observations just be observations instead of fueling into the energy behind them, and taking out the energy wherever you can, making things very innocent as much as you can, assuming the best. And last but not least, we don't want to punish kids for sibling rivalry. In share parenting, we really don't want to punish kids anyway, but sibling rivalry is such an important part of growing up together and becoming a fully functioning adult human who goes out and engages with the world. And there's such an incredible benefit to having siblings and to having all of these opportunities to learn about how to engage with another person. And we don't want to punish them for struggling with that. It's supposed to be a struggle. It's not easy living with anyone. Like, husbands and wives and wives and wives and husbands and whoever lives together, they fight. Like, people that live together fight about things. They could be big things, they can be little things, they can be things that matter and things that don't. That's normal. And how we manage those conflicts is how we end up really valuing our relationship. And so we get this opportunity to teach our kids that conflicts happen in relationships. And The relationships matter more than the conflicts. So we just solve the problems. Whenever these conflicts arise, we solve the problems. And we give them tools and skills to solve those problems. So more and more and more and more, they solve their own problems. And, we work to model it for them. We work to not cast blame and judgment on whose fault and all that. It doesn't matter. What matters is, what's the problem? How are we going to solve it? And when we do that, we give them a gift. We give them the gift of conflict resolution. We give them the gift of believing in their good nature. We give them the gift in believing that their relationships and their love for their siblings and their parents can surmount conflict. And that level of security and trust in your family and your home base is remarkable. It carries people through lots of hard times. It's something that a lot of people are missing out on, and it's something that we have the opportunity to recognize as a positive that can come from all of these conflicts between our siblings. So if you are struggling with this, you're not alone. Use some of these techniques. If you are still feeling frustrated or having a hard time implementing the techniques with your particular kids, write down some of the conflicts that you notice throughout the day and give me a call. You can go to bit.ly/callsammy and schedule a free call. We can talk about your kids and your specifics, and I can help you to maybe find a different perspective, different word choices to help your kids move through those things, some strategies to help them to not have the conflicts in the first place, or to have those conflicts pass through a lot quicker and easier. If you have not yet, I recommend that you read Sure Parenting, the book, Building Blocks to Create Their Best Childhood. It is available on Amazon, both in paperback and Kindle, and there are tons and tons and tons and tons of things in there that will help your family to move through these conflicts into a happier, more peaceful home. So with that, I am so glad that you got to listen today. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to being with you next time. Bye.